Hey, good evening, everyone. It's 5:30 on Thursday, April 16th, 2026. We are gathered here for another council budget workshop session. And tonight, we will be addressing the fire department and finance and administration. After we conclude our workshop tonight, we're going to be going into a regular business meeting starting at 7. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have both Chief Groder and Deputy Chief Leach here with us here today, and we'll go over the fire department budget for the folks watching at home. We have Haley will navigate you to the home page of our website that says Budget Review. And then you'll see on the left-hand side the departments and their summaries, go down to public safety and then fire, and that will bring you to their budget that we're going to review. And for those with the book, it's on page 184 is where we start. So the fire department expenditures this year are actually overall down $165,905 or 1.83. That's primarily, if you recall, last year, there was some money put aside for the SAFER grant firefighters. So how we did that last year was putting it into the salary of regular employees line. So that was more in FY 2026, and that's since been reduced because that number was taken out and will be carried over to cover the SAFER grant firefighters, because that grant ends in FY 27 or next February. So there was some money set aside for that. We're still calculating on the overall impact of those 4 months, March, April, May, June, that will cover those firefighters, looking at where the fire department's going to end up this year, because as you see, you decided to tuck that money away to prepare for that, so there wouldn't have been that big of a fiscal cliff. So that's why this overall budget looks a little wonky. You'd wonder, well, didn't they get cost of living increases like everybody else? They did. However, the other thing working in favor of this budget to be reduced is we've had several retirements of some higher level folks that obviously when you backfill them, you're hiring entry level positions. So that's came at a cost savings as well for that. We have another battalion chief who's retiring before the end of the year as well. So that along with the money that was set aside is what you see. You would think that would be up, and it would be if we didn't set that money aside. So I hopefully that answers that. We can certainly talk about that more. And obviously it affects everything else down as well, as far as the benefits and contract infringe, if you will. Under contractual, that overall line is up $64,797 or 17%. The primary drivers of that is the motor vehicle line is with the is up $11,450 or 1703, and that's that increase was due to a changeover in the mechanic that we have. Mark Susi retired, and so there was a look to basically offset that cost or prepare for his loss, but we have hired somebody new that's doing really well, so there may not be as much of an impact on that line as we once thought there would be. So we're looking at that closely as well. Service fees are up $40,000 is 61.54%, and that has to do with the billing company. Their per capita fees have gone up, so there's an increase in that line that is solely for that cost, if you will. And then repairs and maintenance of equipment is up $13,050 or 20%, and that is for the testing of the air packs and things like that. The equipment for the firefighters is the primary driver. That has to be done so many years. It's not every year, but goes back and forth. So. And then supplies overall are up $15,295. Primarily, that's your medical surgical lab, those costs have increased for those particular items, so that has caused that overall line to go up as well. Educational supplies, you'll see is up $6,250. That's for fire training, is the primary increase with that. We don't have our own fire locations to train in, so they build a lot of their own structures that they train on and things like that, so. And then under fixed charges, you'll see a significant increase of $215,100 or 29%. The primary driver with that is the EMS bad debt is up to $200,000 or 28.57. And that's, Chief Leach can get into more detail if you have questions, but that's due to the main care reimbursement and loss of, increase in bad debt over that is affecting that overall line as well. And Chief's our expert on that and can get into more detail if you have questions. And then capital outlay is overall down, $20,800. Computer hardware is down. There was some software that they were looking at through the dispatch center that they're not going to need, it looks like, which was the overall driver in the reduction of those lines as well. So those are the highlights, and certainly the chiefs are here who can answer any questions and talk in more detail on those lines. And I'll just skip over to the next page, which is revenues on page 186. And we'll just kind of go through those. The overall revenues for the fire department are up $200,000 or 5.26%. And you'll see some of the primary drivers of that are charges for services. In that line, the EMS calls have increased, that line's up $600,000 or 11.32%. We've increased our rates, and there's going to be more of a capture from that we charge out. And then it says CONT allowance, EMS, continued allowance for EMS. That's the offset to this, and that's down $400,000 or 25%. And again, that has to do with the billing and the capture with that. So those are the highlights of revenues and expenditures. And again, like I said, Chief Leach does all the billing and deals directly with all these companies and can certainly get into the detail of those, so I won't take up a lot of time. And I will stop there and turn it over. If I've missed anything, gentlemen, or anything to add, please let me know.
I think that's very close, and we can answer the questions.
Councilor Lind?
Hey, Chief, just easy question. I was reading your bullets as far as goals, wildlife mitigation. Do we have a tanker truck?
No,
So that's where mutual aid is really important.
correct.
I think Chelsea's got a tanker truck.
So the way we set it up is that if we get reported like a woods fire that's large in size or a structure fire, there's 3 tankers from the east side and 3 tankers from the west side, all preset.
Yep.
And then we just say we need a tanker task force from the east side or west side, and dispatch just calls those 3 towns.
So see, that's that mutual aid and that relationship. That's great. And then just a very quick question for the airport. Is there additional training? Because that's not handled, those calls aren't like a structure fire. There's unique training and.
So we used to be highly trained in that category because we covered the airport, meaning like we had a truck there with a crew. We do our basic required training every year. They currently don't have a truck. The airport, it's going to be sent out for pump training. We've got all the prices back, not training, but for a pump repair. So yeah, as far as the initial training for dealing with something in the airport, we're all set with that.
That's good, because I'm flying with Greg Jordan and Bill Burgio tomorrow morning, so that is an awesome answer. Thank you, Chief.
They just got to keep it in the air.
Isn't there a rating with their commercial flights too that doesn't require a certain level? If you could maybe explain that as well.
Yeah, it was when they ran the Saab.
Yeah.
It was a passenger level. They're down to 9 passengers now. When they were running the Saab, it was like 20 passengers. So when you're hitting a certain level of passengers, you have to have a manned airport. And they don't have a manned airport because the numbers aren't there.
Counselor Lilly and then Counselor Sinkowitz.
Thank you. Looking at also the goals here, the final one talking about the community paramedicine program. Do you mind explaining what that is, a little bit more detail?
We were looking at establishing a community paramedicine program. We've kind of stepped back from that based on where the financial status was. But the program would basically, there's a few components that we'd look at. One would be setting up a system where we could be of benefit to the unhoused population with routine health care. There's some steps that have to be taken in there. You'd have to get them established in the system. They would have to be referred by a physician. So we would have to have a physician associated with that that could take them on as a patient and then refer them to the program. And then we would be able to do wound care, any number of things. It's an expanded scope of paramedicine that is more, it'd be very similar to home health care in some of those settings. But you could go in and you could draw labs if somebody needed to have lab work done. You could do any type of that sort of care. Another component would be trying to team up with Maine General, and where they have, if you're familiar with healthcare, if someone's admitted to the hospital and they get discharged, if they happen to get readmitted within a short period of time, the hospital doesn't get paid for that admission. So they contract with individuals to go out and do follow-up care with them, make sure that their med lists are right. They are understanding, the follow-up care that they're supposed to be doing. That would be a second area where we could try and contract with the local hospital to provide that type of service. And then a third type would be the frequent callers that we have. We have people that won't use an ambulance in their lifetime. We have people that use it once or twice, and then we have people that use it once or twice a month or more. And you would work out an arrangement with them to develop a proactive approach to managing their needs. A lot of times, it comes down to they need very minimal health care, but they need someone to come in and reassure them that what they're doing is right and that, they're okay, that you make sure that they're scheduled with their doctors, those type of things. So there would be those three aspects to the program. My expectation would be that we would need one person to start and develop the program and the relationships. And then once it got started, that person could do part-time as a manager of the program and overseeing scheduling and that sort of thing, and part-time out in the field seeing people. And then we would probably need to have a second person start a few months later that would be 100% care in the field. And the vision would be if we utilized it to spend a lot of time with the unhoused population and work with Dawn at the police department with some of the opioid issues, that we would be able to tap into some of the opioid funds to partially fund it. And there are grant monies that are out there to assist as well with capital.
Follow up to that, are there any communities around us that have a system or this is some that we could look at that
There are.
have been successful?
There are, and I've had a couple of people that have been helping me work on this that have gone and ridden with Waterville and Topsom. And they both have pretty decent programs, and they're set up completely different. Waterville uses on-duty firefighters, and we would look at more of the Topsom model where they have dedicated people for that. There's a significant training program that goes with it.
Thank you. Next question is, looking at the 2026 budget and projected, looks like we'll be projected to be under budget. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that money that gets reallocated to the department, or does that go back?
Oh, under budget? Yeah. Yeah, what we do is we look at that. Some of that money, remember, is the carryover for the funds. So there'll be that. And then at the end, the quick and easy answer is any unallocated funds goes into the general fund. We've talked about reserve funds and things like that. Excuse me, but that's what always has happened in the past. It goes back into the general fund, and then there's more money in the fund balance for the following year.
Is there, looking at what we talked about on Tuesday for the CIP, talking about the either rentals or for a new vehicle?
That's in there, under leases.
Right, okay, so that's already allocated into the 2027 budget?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And then one final question is for the revenues, talking about or I guess in the, or the bad debt. Is that, what are some things that we could do to either eliminate that? Is there, obviously, is it the state not paying it, or individuals, or both?
There's a combination. Medicare, we went through a period with Medicare where we were not getting much reimbursement from them. It's starting to improve now, so we are seeing better collections there. But a large percentage of our patient payments are just skipped. And that's the biggest piece. I do think that we have a new primary contact with our billing company, and she's responsible for New England. The one that we had before, the company was growing significantly, and the person that we had is responsible for like Pennsylvania West, and the new person is dealing with New England primarily in New York. And she has a better understanding of the main rules, insurance rules. And she's actually, Portland Fire Department just joined them this past year as well, so she's their representative. So she's picking up on some of the things that we were seeing issues with main care, and working to improve that collection rate. So I think that the 900,000 is going to be lower, but I didn't want to say it's definitely going to be lower. And the other piece with the increase, with the rates going up, that in turn with those self-pays is going to increase the write-off.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Counselor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Chiefs. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for answering my questions in email earlier. I give a lot of credit to Chief Leach for teaching me about contractual allowances, bad debt, and EMS revenues, because we've had that conversation, I think, every year that I've been on council, and this year we didn't have to have it for once. It stuck. One of the things, most of the things City Manager Mills already talked about, so I don't think we need to go over them again. And then Councilor Lilly brought up the community paramedicine, which we had talked about. The professional clinician, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So you said that they are contracted now to support our staff. We have the peer support, and then we have a contract with a professional clinician now.
Yes. So we've had a contract with the Wellness Center of Maine. They're out of Dover Foxcroft. And they're providing us with basically the ability for our peer support team to refer to their clinicians. And typically we'll have any of our providers in to see a mental health clinician within 24 hours, as opposed to if you went to your primary care doctor and got referred to a mental health worker, you may not hear anything from them for 4 to 6 months about scheduling an appointment. So that relationship is huge, and we've used it many, many times over the last couple of years. So that's one piece that they do. We're required, when you have a peer support team, you're required to have a mental health clinician to oversee the program. So we have to contract for that service. So they do that. They also provide training to our peer support team and a clinician at every monthly meeting of the peer team. And that's what we're doing right now with them. They've started to come in once a month to meet with a shift and do a shift level training. They'll do depression. They've done like 4 of them now. Anything from addiction, depression, suicide, and there's a list of them that they've got coming up. So we meet with the crews. They also spend the day there so that they're familiar to everybody. And, you know, if you go up to a firefighter and say, hey, anything you want to talk about? No, I'm good. But after seeing somebody a couple of times and getting to know that it's safe to talk to them, the culture that we've developed over the last 2 years is 2 or 3 years is pretty open about mental health in the building, and everybody knows that they're there. So we've had people that after seeing them a couple of times have caught them in the hallway and says, hey, can I call you? And that's developed people getting that stuff off their chest. So that's where we're at right now. The contract that we were looking to do this year with them would increase their ability to do training. Let me back up. Everything they do right now is billed out at their rate of $150 an hour. So whatever they do, we get billed for. The contract would do a one set price for the year. We'd pay them quarterly, and whatever needed to be done, they would do as far as training for the peer support team, training for the duty crews, initial onboarding of new peer team members, training for that. They would develop a data collection component where they would do at least annual surveys, if not quarterly surveys of the crew to see where things are at. Is there training specific to something that you want? Those type of things. And then the embedded clinicians would continue, and they would add wellness consults where each member of the department would be required to sit down with a clinician. If they don't talk to them, they don't talk to them, but they get a few minutes, they get an hour. Each person would get an hour with them. And then there'd be debriefings for critical incidents. Those would all be included. And referrals to outside needs like the wellness center. The IAFF Center for Excellence, or Harbor for Grace is another one. Those long-term, month-long inpatient programs. That's what they would offer us for that, along with a new app that would track all of our peer teams' work. It doesn't track confidential information. It just tracks their hours and those type of things. And it ties the team in with the clinicians so that they can refer direct to the clinician. So
That seems like it would be an incredible service.
Yeah.
Do you have the cost difference for those two, or could you get them at some point?
their contracted price that they proposed for this year was $49,500, and that would be inclusive of everything. In our current budget, I want to say we were, They were. Kind of tied into two different line items because part of it was under training. And some of the overtime was included in there, so.
You can't find it right off, Steve. You can get that back to
Yeah.
us.
I can get back to you. if you want.
I can provide it to the council.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it would be very valuable for our firefighters and EMS, and knowing the difference in that cost, and, you know, if we're able to bear that cost, that would be really great to hear. I think everything else you discussed about our EMS calls and the revenue, it looks like that revenue, I did quick and dirty math of the ratio between the EMS calls revenue and the contractual allowance, and it seems like that's holding pretty steady right now. We had that year in '25 where the reimbursements were not good that you had talked about. Is that something you think we can continue to look at, steady reimbursement at this point with the policy landscape?
Yeah, I anticipate it's going to go up more.
Okay.
Looking at the last 6 months, we're on track for a net collections of 2.3. And with the budget that you have today, our projection is 2.8. And that would leave about $200,000 that would be sitting in that balance due area. So some of that would be collected, some of it would wind up being written off, but there's that 3-month lag, 2 to 3 month lag in collection, but so our goal, and I've met with our billing company and talked to them, where our goal is for 2.8, and she's watching pretty closely to make sure that we're going to get there.
Great. I'm glad to hear the billing company's working out well, and that shift has kind of shown itself in the collections this year. And I did want to note that the chiefs brought to the council the concept of selling off. Am I using a debt collection agency for the bad debt, and the council did not want to move ahead with that at the time. So that's a decision a policy decision that we've made, and you are all trying to help us with. So I appreciate that you're constantly trying to chip away at that while we've kind of intentionally taken that on. Thank you.
I looked at those numbers again this week, and with the write-off, looking at the calendar year of 2025, it shows a write-off of 784. And if we went to collections, typically they say that they collect about 15%. And then they take a 30% fee out of that. So with a $785,000 write-off debt, you'd be looking at collecting about $83,000.
Yeah.
It's not worth a headache.
Yeah, there's no perfect solution to this problem. Thank you very much.
Counselor Lind?
I think, I'm not sure if all the councils were here when we talked about the SAFER grant. We jumped right into that. I don't think they know the numbers and how that was timed out, Chief. And we just talked about it, and I looked around, I thought, I don't know if Council Lilianos or anybody watching understands how many firefighters we were able to use that grant for when the grant, could you just give a little history so people?
Yeah, so we signed up for a grant, SAFER grant. Federal government gave it to us. It was a 3-year grant, non-matching, and that expires in February of 2027. Through that grant, we got 8 firefighters. So at the end of that, those 8 firefighters are there. The council gave us 8 additional at the time, because we weren't sure we were going to get the grant. So the council gave us the 8, and then we got the grant. So we were able to add a 4th rescue. So any depreciation of staffing would be a depreciation of rescue resources.
That's why the money was set aside in anticipation of that grant running out. So that's the extra
To offset it.
to offset that.
Well, right after the first year, we started looking at how we're going to tackle that cliff. And that's when we started putting stuff aside and preparing for it. So we only have 4 months in this budget frame that we have to worry about.
Council Jenkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This really isn't a question, but an observation. One thing I wanted to talk about, and I appreciate you bringing up about the bad debt and the process, and we're making progress. But I do know that as we get into some hard conversations about this a little bit later, the makeup of the council is a little bit different, and our tax situation budget is far different than it was when we made that policy decision. And I know it doesn't sound like 83 is a lot of money, but it may save a position that we might have to let go. So I think that as we get into those hard conversations, that this debt collection situation, or even selling off bad debt, might be something that we should at least talk about more. So.
Council Morse Polley?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. The billing fee under service fees that's going up, is that based on billed or received money from the company?
Collected.
Actually
received,
collected, so
actual
not just billed.
payments.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned that there was problems with billing main care. Is there a prior authorization process that's causing those problems? What are those problems?
Not for the emergency calls. If we do, we've had a few that were interfacility transfers that we've had some issues with prior authorization. But we do about 250 interfacility calls a year. So, and the main care ones in that are a smaller number. So it's not a common occurrence. But they're able to get the prior authorization after the transfer, but they've been working on that. The other piece that we were having problems with was the Quimby Act. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But I don't think that our billing company had any idea about what that was. And we were running into problems because we were sending bills to patients and they were not paying them because they don't have to pay them because it's supposed to be billed differently. So we've been trying to correct that, and I think we're seeing some increases because they're actually billing those correctly now.
Okay, and they're staying on top of the increase in rates
Yes.
immediately? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
Thank you, gentlemen.
that takes care of that. Thank you both.
Next up, we have our finance and administration. And that covers city clerk, treasurer, collection, registration and elections, administration and audit, and assessors. That is on page 104. Our books. And I'll invite Ingrid's here, as I should have mentioned earlier, our finance director, and she'll bring up Kelly, our city clerk, will bring up our assessor, Christie, and I think that's it. So, going through from the top on page 104, the overall budget is down $88,332, or 4.83% in the negative. And we'll go through each section like we've done before and pause and go from there. But so city clerks, and when I say overall, that's city clerk, election, administration, assessors. So that's the overall of this department. City clerk and treasurer, they're up a total of $54,144. Primarily is the cost of living increase at $33,871, or 7.29%. and the health benefits and fringe that you see. So as you go down their line, city clerk, treasury, and collection, you'll see there's some negatives and small additions, but the overall is what I've just stated from the cost of living increases. So that's all the highlights for that bureau. And I have Kelly here to answer any questions you have.
Council Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Kelly. It's nice to see you. I had a couple of small questions. So we're looking at the city clerk treasury tax collector budget right now, right? There were a couple of reductions that I wanted to give you a chance to talk about. The printing, binding, and stationery, and the lien recording. Can you talk to us about what cost savings you're expecting in those categories?
Yes. For everybody out there, I'm Kelly Goldrup. I'm city clerk tax collector. So the printing, binding, stationery, the decrease, it will be approximately 3,500 to 4,000, just because of an error in the tax billing. Last year, the company had an error, and to make up for that and to do right by the city, they agreed to not charge us this year.
Oh, that, we appreciate them making it right.
And the lien recording and discharges, that change is due to the rates at the Kennebec Registry. They are doing a flat rate now instead of a per page.
Okay, it works out in our favor. And then I think I also wanted to ask about what training opportunities you're going to be able to take this year. It looks like there's going to be some more training happening.
Yes, we definitely have some additional training. My deputy and I will be going out of state for some New England clerks trainings and some additional, hopefully better to bring back to the office.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes through your office, and I am sure any efficiencies that we can gain are useful to you and your staff. Thank you for explaining those.
Anything else for Kelly?
All right.
She's still going to be talking about
Yeah, we'll
registration elections.
Keep her right here for that. So registration and elections, that overall line is down $5,977 or $8 or 8%, 8.41%. You'll see an increase in the part-time salaries of $4,476 or 19%. That's the cost of living adjustment for the poll workers that primarily comes out of that. So they needed an increase to keep pace with the requirements. And then contracted services is down $3,300 or 73%. That is from working, consolidating at the Civic Center. We've realized some savings there in that particular line. So I think, and there's a couple others in there that contribute to the consolidation as well that Kelly can get into for the overall reduction in that line. That's all I have for that.
Anybody, any questions or comments from council? Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi again, Kelly. I don't know if this actually fits into this budget or the previous budget. Maybe it's a little bit in both, but consolidating the work week, the Monday through Thursday into the longer hours, are you going to be able to see any effects of that consolidation in this year's budget?
Overtime, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe that the overtime will actually decrease. I don't know how much, it's hard to tell, but I think we will see a decrease there. And the other is our courier services will no longer be needed on Fridays. So that's going to be a savings of almost 1,500,
That's great.
a little bit, but
We'll take every little bit, right?
yep.
Thank you.
Others? Okay.
Kelly. Administration and audit, we'll look at Ingrid for this. I'll leave it to the finance director to reduce her budget by $38,313 or 7%. Now, remember, this one is the shift of the employee from her department, the John and payroll is coming out of her budget and went into the human resource budget. So that's primarily what you see this reduction for. And then their postage is up a bit, and that's an adjustment they needed to make because of the increase in postage cost that we haven't kind of kept up with over the last few years. So overall, you'll see the majority of their budget is down, but those are the highlights of the increases, if you will, or the shifting in positions. And that's all I have for audit and administration.
Council Lind.
So the 38,000 is the movement of a position. Was that halfway through the FY? That seems pretty low for a position.
Yeah, so there was cost, I should have said cost of living increases for the other individuals that were there.
Offset, though.
That offset, and then they have a halftime position that wasn't in last year's budget, that was approved in the FY '26 budget, that is cause for that increase too.
Okay.
We had to increase
Makes sense.
that position.
Yep, 38 just.
Yeah, I should have said that. That's a good pickup.
Others? Yes, Councilor Singowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Ingrid. Thank you for all of your support throughout this entire process. And one of the things I wanted to ask about, the small reduction in the computer software, is that due to not needing to purchase the budget software this year, or is that something else?
No, that is the one-time fee that both of them charged for the setup is gone. So it's for this coming year and for FY '28, it'll be a flat.
That's great. That was kind of my tee up for thanking you for this budget software. This has really been a different year going through this budget book. It just made a really big difference in how everything came across, and I hope it also was really helpful for our public to understand the budgeting process. So it's good to see the reduction in the one-time fees, but also I think this was a very good choice and will do well for us in the future.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask about your travel for conferences opportunity. Is there something that we can look forward to hearing about?
Yes. So the Munis trainings I find very valuable, but it does not make sense for a lot of us to go in 1 year. So I would like to send Stacy, who is our AP person who does a lot of AP every week. I think they would benefit her to go. And also for our admin assistant, because the person we had hired has some accounting experience and is able to do some of these things that would be relevant in that, in the system. And so I think it's helpful because right now, I'm mostly the person people come to for Munis, and it's hard. It takes a lot of time. So the more people in my office I can get more familiar with that, they can help explain processes.
That's fantastic. I will admit to knowing nothing about Munis, but from everything that I've heard, it's a very complex piece of software, and the more people we can have trained in it, the better. Thank you.
Right, and I think we're not using it to its fullest capabilities, which is very helpful to go to these, because then you look at them and think, there were a couple of things I didn't realize we could do in it that I know now, and when I have a break in between things, I'm going to explore that more.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ingrid.
Anyone else? Just a quick thank you for all the work that you put in with this budget and also with the CIP with Bill.
I'm really happy with how it turned out. The process of putting it together was a lot easier too, so not just on the output side, but all of us putting it together was really a lot easier, and I will dare say a little bit fun. So,
Its own way. All right, I think we're good.
All right, so the last bureau is assessing. We have Christie here to answer any questions after I go through it. I will pause after that. Usually I jump right to revenues, but it's such a large revenue section for finance and administration. I think if you're okay with that, Your Honor, I'll do assessor. We'll go answer any questions, and then I can jump to revenues after that. So, okay. Our assessing bureau is down overall $98,186, or minus 20%. And that's primarily due to the revaluation. You'll see later on in on the next page that has caused that significant reduction. As you know, we're done paying for the revaluation in last year's budget, so we don't have to continue with that. Their salaries are up because of cost of living increases, $16,298, or 6.57%, and along with health and fringe. But again, the biggest item in this is the reduction in contracted services of $125,500, or 88%. So that's the cause of their budget being where it is.
Counselor Judkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank you with recognition that this reevaluation has brought a lot of extra work onto your shoulders this year. And I realize that. I think most of us here do.
Okay.
That we are
Appreciate that.
very appreciative of your efforts in this. So thank you. And kind of sorry, but thank you.
I appreciate that as well.
We're lucky to have her for sure, and she's actually brought some handouts of some models of what the revaluation looks like with the mill rate that we're at, and what a reduction in 1% would look like, just to kind of give you an idea as you go into wrap up, what that looks like for different actual properties that are going through the revaluation from where they were last year and what they will be, and the costs and stuff. So she can certainly come back for the wrap-up too, but as a target of opportunity, if you had any questions for her now, you could certainly ask that, but she can hand those out for you to digest as we go into next week.
Thank you.
Counselor Lind.
No one was going to ask you a question. So the response is coming back from people. Are you getting timely responses?
Yes,
Good, good. I just was wondering if people were dragging on that, or,
that was a decision that I had made because we were not doing interior inspections. And we've gotten a lot of response. I'm hoping, I'm going to have to put in a little extra time to make sure they're all processed before the end of the revaluation timeframe, but it's.
yeah, your
it's
staff's
good.
great. I mean, I called, had a question, and they said, do you want to report it now? And I said, sure. So I reported
Yes.
it over the phone and made a note of who I talked to and the date and time, and it was great. It was like 30 seconds. It was
Had quite a
fantastic,
few
yeah.
Of those as well, so.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Others?
All right.
You want to do revenues, right?
Absolutely. If you want to leave those, or we can hand them out later, that would be great. Did you brought the
Yes.
models that we talked
Yes.
about? Okay, yeah, we'll get those out to you. So revenues, you'll see start on page 107, and we kind of get into everything, and these were all entered by Ingrid, who can help explain the differences. But the overall, you'll see, there's a little bit, and I'll kind of preface it with, like the TIF transfer, we do a little bit different this year because we put it into different departments, so that might look like it's down a little bit. But remember, there are values in other parts of the budget that haven't traditionally been there. So the overall, you'll see TIF transfer is a little bit more than it was last year, but you'll see as we go down through that, I just want to list that out. But over to page 108, some of the differences, you'll see where it says 2026 real estate taxes, that is up $3,456 thousand or $238 or 17%. The property tax as well is up $2 million or 66.67%. And the tax interest is up 25,000 or 33%. percent. Motor vehicle excise tax, we're estimating to be an increase as well at $100,000, looking at our projections to where we're at, or 2.78%. And our investment income, we expect to yield more as well, as interest rates have seemed to hold for us at $231,000 or 18.20%. Marijuana retail is up, you'll see, but it's kind of offset. The retail store is up and the home occupation is down, but the retail is up more at $9,800 or 70%. Our agent BMV fee is up $3,390 or 5%. And then into our assessing, we have their overall is up $98,123 or 5%. And a big one that they have of the increase is the solar reimbursement. And I believe that has to do with at least one project that we're expecting to be more, but Christie can go into more detail why we're expecting more revenue in solar at $174,528 or 436% increase. Under finance and administration, their overall is down a bit at $317,361, while the procurement card percentage we're getting back is up $6,000. The overall, what you'll see difference in that is the fund balance transfer that from last year was at $7,608,000 is down to $4,608,000, or a difference of $3 million, and we've talked about that throughout the budget. So that's captured in this picture of the overall revenues as well. And then again, you'll see the TIF transfer is down as well, but again, that's captured in other locations throughout the budget to offset that. And Ingrid can go into more detail if you have questions with that. So that's the overall highlights of the revenues that are in finance and administration.
Counselor Lilly.
Just taking a look at this, I know it's small, but under the taxi licenses, is that 200? I thought we had removed the fees for taxis.
That is a good point. That should be zero.
Again, $200, but
That is, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
This projection was in December before
Yeah.
the decision
Yeah.
was made.
sure. I just
Yeah,
wanted
and
to
I
make
didn't pick
sure
up on that.
Yeah.
Counselor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. I think my first one is for Christie. The homestead reimbursement looks like our projected or our proposed for next year is lower than the projected for this year.
So it took me a while to catch up when I first started in 2023. When we don't get the reimbursement right away. So it's anything that we are getting a savings for will not come in until the following year.
Okay.
And so I didn't change it for the first 2 years at all because it hadn't changed. But now there's such a fluctuation in our ratio and what we are actually giving for an exemption, then there's a change for our return as well, our reimbursement.
That makes sense. So what we're seeing in the 27 proposed is what's actually happening right now.
So
Because
in
of
the
the
next
delay
year,
in
we would get
reimbursement.
reimbursement for the 25-26.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So when we look next year, we'll start to see that reimbursement go up.
A little bit,
The
yeah.
next
So it's,
fiscal year.
we get the same percentage back, and depending on what the mill rate is, and the mill rate will be lower, the exemption itself will be higher, so that it won't double.
Right.
It will be somewhat higher, yes.
Okay.
It should be.
Yeah.
If we get the same reimbursement and the state stays with the same reimbursement rates.
Okay, great. And then the solar reimbursement that City Manager Mills mentioned, can you talk about that a little bit?
So we do have larger solar projects that are coming in, and those are somewhat reduced. So they, like a lot of our business personal property, they are adjusted by our certified ratio as well. And so those will come up to 100%. And then that will be, we get 50% reimbursement on the solar as well.
Great. Can you, so Christy was very kind and educated me on this week about the personal property and how that is, personal property tax and how that's affected by our certified ratio. For people listening at home, could you explain that? You don't have to explain it as much as we talked about it, but just a brief overview.
So business personal property consists of all the assets a business would use. Everything from office furniture to mechanical equipment to construction equipment to a laptop computer. And so when they report that to us, it has a value. We depreciate that value according to Marshall and Swift depreciation for that type of equipment. And then it has to be adjusted by our certified ratio. So basically we were losing value from just reducing it. There's no difference from last year until this year for those assets, except now they're going to be at 100%.
Yeah.
So there will be an increase in personal property assessments and tax as well.
So when we look at that, that's up in, which one is that falling into?
I do have part of that in my handout. I didn't want to stand up and interrupt everyone and hand that out, but.
Your information is very useful. Thank you. That's kind of at the top of the page 108, the 26 personal property taxes. We see quite an increase there, and that wouldn't be reflective of the ratio changing yet, right? That is more, is that something else changing that?
I'm not sure where you're referring to.
The top of our page 108 talks about 2026 personal property taxes. We had budgeted 3 million. It looks like we're projected to take in 5.1 million. And I'm not sure if, since our ratio hasn't changed yet, I imagine that that's not affected by the ratio. Does that make sense?
Right. So I'm sorry. Can you repeat it? So you're talking in that budget. I haven't.
Yeah, we can talk about that later if that's more useful. But as I was going through the revenues, I was surprised to see that we took in more than we had budgeted for in 2026 in both real estate and personal property tax.
So it should be, I'm assuming the business
Yeah,
equipment tax
Ingrid,
exemption
Yeah, that was
reimbursement?
more for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Question. So what happens is that personal property tax and the real estate taxes, those totals are dictated by the tax rate summary sheet that we do. So I just break it down. I probably should have put budgeted 5 million in there and then the remainder in the real estate taxes of what the final number was last year. So while it's not necessarily going up, it's just maybe the way that I budgeted it. But we can get increases in there, the sales of our tax acquired properties that go back on the tax rolls, new
Yeah.
buildings, things we can anticipate.
Yeah.
So occasionally, yes, that it can be higher than what we've budgeted. The only way to really get it as close as possible as you can is to get as close as possible in your budgeted numbers to your actuals. And then, but also with Christie, the taxes aren't done until July. So some things can be changed in that, at which we're guessing right now. So, it's a timing issue occasionally, or every year, but I think we get pretty close.
Yeah, the way we have to do budgets and the way
Right.
that all the fiscal year things line up is not always ideal. Yeah, I appreciate you walking through that a little bit, and I think I'll take some time to kind of digest it, and I'm sure your handout is going to be really helpful as well, so thank you.
Yeah, if you have any more questions about that or dig deeper, feel free to email me and I can try to give you a more detailed explanation and examples.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments with respect to the revenue side? Okay, I hear none.
Right. I would just say real quick, we're right on time. Great work. In addition to Christie's handout, what she's giving you, I actually provided you with a packet of information from the last meeting where I had several not several, I had some questions that were asked, and I still I couldn't get everything. I'm still working on some seasonal passes and visiting at Bicentennial, some Old Fort Western information, busiest times at Lithgow, but I was able to get a memo to you on custodians and why we keep them separate from, didn't really articulate that very well the other night, so that explains why we keep them under development services, because they do move around a bit. And then there was a question about positions for what's funded by TIFs. I've got a memo on that for you, and then the KV cap contract is in there as well. I did our economic development team did find a sample downtown MOU that we're going to look at and put together for you, and we'll bring that back as
Thank you.
well. So
Thank you.
I didn't forget about any of the others, but I wanted to get you this information as quickly as possible, so.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's all, Your Honor.
So the message from the superintendent, was that?
Thank you. Yes, that's separate. He emailed me that today. You'll see there was some questions that the council had when they were here, and there's an email that the superintendent sent me to ask, or to answer the questions that were asked that night too. And I'm glad you prompted me, because I did have something real quick too. For the wrap-up on Monday, he is prepared to be here if you need him in that capacity to answer any questions or anything like that. So we'll have, our team here if you have any
Tuesday.
I
Tuesday.
keep saying Monday, don't I? I think I've been saying that for the whole time now. I
We'll
apologize.
give you the day off.
Could
You
could I?
you
Oh,
feel
that's
free to
right.
come in on Monday.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for keeping me straight. It takes a village. But yeah, certainly, he's going to be available if you want him. I told him that I would put that out there, and you could let me know so we could have it. So other than that, we'll be here on Tuesday.
All right, sounds good. We thank you all for being with us. So what are we going to do next? Are we going to do a pre-meeting, or are we going out in the hall with the guests, or?
So, thank you. We're going to do a pre-meeting from 6, from now until 7, and then we have some special guests who we're recognizing at the beginning of the business meeting, which will come back in. But before that, there may be a table set up from our guests for you to be trying some tasty treats from them. So,
We'll try to fit that in between the pre-meeting and the start of our meeting.
that's right. That's right. So,
That's pre-meeting.
yes, fast pre-meeting. So, and then we'll come back to the bench. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we'll be back on camera at or about 7 o'clock.